In this video help tutorial, we're going to be covering the screens that we're using for this application. There are some slight differences. You'll notice there's a line on the iPhone screens. Over here, there's no line. That's to differentiate the two menus. What we're going to be doing is we're going to go through starting, because this right now we're using an iPad 2 for simulation. We're going to go through the iPad screens and we're going to pop over to the iPhone screens just to show you the different organization of the way they're laid out. But basically what we're doing is we're using the same screens, just reorganized for the size of the screen. One of the things I want to point out as we're moving and adding videos is that we should view all these in HD 720. And the way you do that is if you start a video, for example, if I go over here and start the video, as you're running through the video, and I'm going to pause it, what we're doing is we go over to the gear and we pop up the gear and change this to 720 HD. You can also fill the whole screen if you have the larger, and I'm going to show you how you can do this larger area. If you go to the open URL, what it's going to do, it's going to pop the screen up to a larger view, and you're going to be able to use the expansion to be able to see the whole screen in 720. The closed caption is what it is. Now watch, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pop over here and hit open. It's going to bring up the Safari on the iPad, and now it'll look a little different. And then when I run the actual video, I'll go back over and let's go ahead and pause it. What we're going to do is we're going to expand the size of the screen to fit the entire screen. And if we pop over and do the 720, now what happens when we start running it again, it'll be a clear screen and you can see the text much easier, and you'll also be able to see all the information with the cursor and everything moving across the screen a lot easier. Okay, let's do this. Let's go back. We'll go say done down here to go back to the regular screen, and now we'll start the tutorial for the first screen on the iPad side, which is classes. Classes is basically the starting point for this application where you're creating the new record for that semester, for that year, for the classes you're taking during that semester. So what we're really looking at here is each individual class that you'll be taking for this semester, the days of the week that it actually is occurring, and then the time, 9 to 10:30 is the length of the time. In this class, Professor Black is teaching the course, and you can have, of course, anybody's name you want in there. If you click on this, you'll be able to bring up the keyboard and edit the fields. And also, for example, if you have a date or something else, that date field will drop down a calendar. Now in this case, for the credits, it's basically a numerical value. So you're going to be putting in a numerical value from the keyboard. And obviously you can click the done. I'm just using the cursor because it's faster. And then you can add the classes time. There is a calendar, Google Calendar, shown on this screen. It's also available if you, let's go ahead and show you the Google Calendar. What you would do in Google is you would run the more up here and then go down to calendar. And I might have to move it up to see it. There it is, calendar right there. You would go ahead and click on calendar to bring up the calendar. Now you have to have a Google account to use a Google Calendar. It is free, and you'd basically just sign in and then go ahead and go to your own calendar. Calendar is used basically for the purpose of scheduling on a calendar that could be used as a part of your regular iPhone. You can go to Google Calendar, and the information you add here, if you log in your phone, would also have the Google Calendar, the information that you add in the application now in your Google Calendar. Of course, you have to log into the correct login in order for it to show up over there, but that will work. Now, on the actual screen here we're looking at, let's go ahead and click this again. Actually, I just show you going to put maps in there, which is kind of interesting. Allow, and say OK for local area. And you can also do maps if you had to go somewhere. So it's quite versatile. So we're in the student record, and we're going to go back now to the iPad menu to classes. Classes, as we said, also has a student notes at the bottom and also a class notes for each class. What this basically does is the overall semester notes, and you can put as much text in here as you need to. And individual notes, say for example you're supposed to bring something to the class for that particular day or whatever, you can go ahead and do that. Now one of the things I want to point out is that on the phone, if you highlight the text in here, like for example if you say select all, and you highlight it, on the iPhone, you can actually create text in here by narrating. It has the ability to do that, and it also will play back. It'll have a thing over here that says play audio or something, or audio. You can click that at the end of the line. It'll actually speak this for you. But on the iPad, it's not going to be able to do that. It's not designed to do that. Let's go ahead now, and I'm going to pop over really quickly and just show you the difference between the classes data screen. And over here you'll see that it has a white area. The white area is representative of the actual data that is in the application as far as the size of the screen, and this could be an iPhone screen, obviously, and it won't carry as much area. So I'm going to go ahead and say that once, and then we'll go back to the menus for the next thing, which is the assignments. On the assignments side of the screen, for each class that you have, whatever it might be, you might have assignments, and these are in sequential order, so you would put them in there. Now, this being a portal will allow you to put as many in there as you need to. As soon as you add text or anything in this area, it'll create another new record below it. So you always have a new record in there. Plus you have an assignments list view, and we'll go ahead and go to list views later on, but I'll show you basically what it does is it allows you to look at the list of assignments in a list view where it fills the whole page with all of them. You can click on them to bring yourself back to the portal record where that exists. And then you can go ahead and get the text and everything if you want to. And of course, you can always edit it and do those kind of things you need to do. The actual class assignments, for example, if you got an assignment and you received a grade or whatever, in this case it's assigned grade for that particular thing you did, that will average up here so that you'll have the average grades for everything that you do as you go through your course of instruction. Then at the very top, the grade average is, you would actually add the grade average for all the class or this class as you're going through it. You would have the ability to take this assignment for the class that you're looking at through education and history as a major and minor. First semester of the year, and of course I have a little bogus year in there just so you can tell the difference of the different records. You would overwrite all this record stuff in here with your actual records that you're working with. And by the way, you can also scroll either manually with your finger on the iPhone and iPad, or if you're using this on a Mac or Windows, you can use the scroll bar at the edge of the screen to scroll. Okay, so let's go back up, and this is the assignment screen and the assignment name and so forth. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is tests. Now, what this is kind of an unusual thing that was created due to one of my clients asking for a quiz card situation where they would have the test study questions and then the test study answers. And they could use these to go back through or have somebody tutor them and ask the questions, and they're supposed to come up with the answers. And this is laid out, for example, this is education in 1800s in USA. And this is the time of the test and the test score that the person received. And in this case, this test is a cover the history of education in the period of 1800 to 1860 and creation of the colonies and had the effect on the region in education. What were the primary lessons being taught in 1800? And then you can put your answer, whatever it is, down here, and the second answer down here for the second question. What you just basically do is fill in the questions and then come down here and put the proper answer to those questions, and then over this case 1 and 2, 1 and 2. And then you can create the next set. This would be the next test and so forth, all the way through all the instruction that you're doing for the first quarter of the course for this particular class. In this class, it's education and studies in the 1800s of the U.S. And each one might be something different that's in here. So it's a matter of being able to do quizzes. And I know when my high school daughter was in high school, we started a thing like this, and we'd have quiz cards, basically paper cards. And we would quiz her on all the questions for each class, for each test that she's doing. And of course, she could have written all the questions herself while she was in class. She could take this information down and then add it to her situation here. Now, up on this area, you have a test notes where you can actually write test notes to brief about the different tests and some of the things that we're going to, like for example, if the professor says we're going to be covering the following things during this class for education, blah, 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 for the first, you want to put that kind of stuff in there to refer back to it. Now, if you're going for extra information and you want to do some research or whatever, I've applied a kind of a different kind of a thing, and I want to explain what this does. You'll see the red underline here. I'm highlighting this because what it does is it allows you to use the browser in this screen, and this drop down here, when you actually go in, for example, it'll have the URL and the name of the website. So in this case, I'm on this one. If I clicked in and I wanted to do research, you'll see that it'll change up here, and then if I go up and click on this, it's going to bring up that research page that I'm researching off in the website. Now, obviously, you can take information that's more advanced than what the instructor is asking you to do, or you can look up certain things that are not clear within the text that you're reading for the class. That's important because it gives you the ability to manage information much broader. And what's nice about it, and I'll show you this next, is that if you have something where you've done a research and you've gone out and found a website that you're interested in, say for example, I went over to Google instead of this one, and I clicked in, and I'm going to go do some searching for Google. I click on Google. Then when I go to the website, it's going to take a second. Okay, there we go. I could go in and I can do a search and that information. Now, the only thing that is kind of a downside is that it doesn't show the actual URL at the top of the page that you're viewing. But if you actually go out here and start looking and then find a website, then you know where you're going, and there may be links off that website that would also help you to get information on the text that you want to find. Now, anytime you're using a popover like this one, it calls at the top a popover, you have to tap on an empty part of the screen anywhere, or you can tap down at the bottom of the screen in most cases, or do this, just do a record. It'll automatically erase whatever's there, and you'll be able to go back by just going back through the do action and go to, say, first to bring you back up here, for example. If you click in this area where it's blank over here, it'll automatically, in the screen you're in, drop back and just give you the information you were reading in this, on this screen, for example. The link up here called website URL is used to show you the different URLs that are shown, and obviously to select them. But how do you modify those? So we're going to show you how to do that. Basically, if you click off and then click on the website URL, it's going to bring up this screen. In this screen, what we're going to be doing is we're going to add the name of a website and the URL. You want to make sure when you copy the URL that if you don't have the http:// which is shown here, you need that. The website URL is pasted from the website. So if you're in there and you have, say for example, your browser up and you're running this application, you can go in and do all kinds of looking at different things, and then the ones you want to add to your website as far as the listing, that's what you would paste in here. Let's go ahead and go back to the screen that we're on for testing. Now, in this screen, you would use the drop-down list for the ones you added, just like we did before, and this is scrolling, so you can add as many as you want in there, and that's going to help you to find the research material. Now, be aware that if you move to a different semester and you have different stuff in this for a new record, for say this is semester 2 and so forth, then the drop-down menus can still be available as far as the drop-down list is concerned over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and now I just want to pop over and show you the difference between the screens for the test screen. For the iPhone, we'll drop in, and again we have all the same information, the same situation and links, and the browser. Now on this screen what happens is obviously the browser is a little bit smaller, and the reason for that is the obvious thing that the screen for an iPhone is going to be somewhat less. Now even if I did put the data all the way across on this and set the screen, obviously this would be you could still view everything in here and do all the things you did before. Now on this, like I showed you, the web page we're looking at here, you have to double click in order to activate the scroll. So that's just something to be aware of. Let's go ahead and go back to the menu we're watching, which was the tests. And from tests, the information that you're providing is, like we said, we have the questions and all that stuff as a review, and the notes and the research area at the top. Let's go ahead and go now to the next record, which is studies. Now studies is a little different than the testing and the assignments that we did before, in that you can outline the information and create a system where you have a text capture area. For example, when I was on the wiki in the last screen, I could have copied the information in here and put it in the chapter and information. And what these are is the subject key points. And this is the subject detail points. Basically, within the detail, we're taking the key points over here, and then we're breaking back over here as an outline, and we're writing in our own words what the actual key point information would be in detail. Break it out in a language that will work for you. What this tends to do in the educational process is that when you're writing text, just typing blindly, it really doesn't make a lot of brain cells to remember. But basically, if you copy the text over here, read it, and then define it in greater detail, which we're doing here, the detail points, you'll find that you'll remember it. And what this does, it's like the flashcard thing we were talking about, but only here you're creating new information, and then you're detailing it out. Later in years, after you leave the class, and maybe if you're a history major, you'll be able to come back to this information and review it. And for example, if you're teaching history, this gives you a lot of insight into the information you learned and all the detail of everything that you learned in the process. Now, like we showed you before, there's a studies area, not a study, these are study notes. There's notes in every area to help you and keep up to what's going on within the area that you're at. In this case, when we're doing studies in the subjects, this would be information that's based on the studies that you're doing, and you may have been assigned something, but you're doing extra credit, and this is where you want to keep track of what you're actually doing and trying to grow your course value by keeping information within the area that you can use either now or later, or even after you leave the classes. Okay, so let's go and look over here at the next thing is the data bank. Now this kind of adds from where we were at before. The data bank is a place where you can add information that is relevant, but now it's going to be used as images along with the text and notes that you're taking about the images. A lot of times if you're doing history, maybe you have subject matter that you pulled from all over in your application on your research or wherever you're at, or your textbooks or wherever. And that's information where you want to keep the images. For example, maybe it's a picture of a French castle, and you want a specific thing about that castle because it has the information visually instead of textually, although you have notes over here to take the textual information. When you're using this screen, basically what it does is it has a record ID for each one of these, so it stays with the parent record. And basically what you're doing is it's showing you the size of the file in there. Now this is kind of important. If you're taking photos yourself and you're not wanting to fill, say like a 16 gig iPad or a 32 gig iPhone, you want to try to keep this information down under 400 kilobytes. In this case, there's only 253. That's a slightly over. Maybe what you want to do is just change the resolution. Now, you do not want to be putting 1 meg, 2 meg, and not videos, but images in here. The reason for that is the obvious thing. You're going to fill up your hard drive very quickly on your iPad. Now, we did in the same case over here, something a little slightly different, and I'll explain that. If you show the website, it'll show the website for the image where this image came from. This, if you go to an image in a website and you right mouse click on it, in this case when I'm doing it in this area, it's going to allow me to replace the image that's in there, export the image, or delete it. But if we're on this line in the future, what it's going to do is it's going to allow us to bring in from the iPad or iPhone photo library the image we want to put in here. Well, what happens if we don't have it on our iPad, but yet we want the image? What we can do is create a URL of the actual image. If you're on a website and you right mouse click on it, what it's going to do, it's going to say copy image URL. It'll be just like this. You would copy the URL, paste it in here, and when you paste it in there, what it's going to do, it's going to allow you to click insert graphic. It will insert the graphic over here, and if up here you have the website where this image comes from, you can click this and it'll open up the actual website to where that image was found. In this case, we're putting in the reference class that we're in. So you have a reference class in there. Oh, by the way, I'll fix this. It's kind of squeezing it, so I'll be fixing that in the after we get done with this video. But you can also delete something. Say, for example, you put it in there, you found that it's not relevant and you don't want it in there, you can always click the delete button. This is one of those rare cases where I provide you with a button. Okay, so let's pause right here, and I'm going to change some things and then come back. We're going to be talking about what we're basically doing in this screen is capturing images as a recap, and we're using the ability to name the class we're in, where the URL was being used, and you can open it by clicking the button. And the same thing with the images, or delete it if you need to. Now this is also a scrolling portal, so you can have as many things in here as you want. For example, if you're doing something in a class where it's technical, you can have technical images and whatever you need, and then you can narrate over here as far as what you want to have in there as far as the description. So this is very helpful when the old saying says a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, you can have the words and the picture also right down to the item. Now I'm going to show you one other little thing. This is in the image. If I click on it and say view, it's going to bring it up to a readable size on the iPad, and somewhat the same thing on the on a Mac or a Windows PC. Click out of the screen, go up, and you can actually send this image if you wanted to using the onboard apps and whatever you may have on your hard drive. You can either email this or print it or do whatever you want as far as the screen is concerned. And then over here it says done. Click done and come back to this screen. Okay, let's recap a little bit. We've gone through and looked at the different menu options down through these. The next video we're going to be covering these items here, the portals and list views and the calendar. And also, before I close here, I want to go over and go to the same screens that we're looking at here. Let's go to Student Studies Data. You can see it's a slight bit smaller, but it's basically all the same information that we were using on the last screen. And of course, these menu options are over here. Let's go to the next one, which is the Data Portal. And the Data Portal is basically a smaller view of this. Now, if you click on this button, Databank Data Portal, watch what happens. It goes to the portal record and gives you a larger view, and all the information is screened over here. I just want to point this out before we actually do the other screens, because it's a little more useful in some cases to have this screen up. This is visible on the actual iPhone, so you can actually scroll around to see, like the image here, it'll actually show well. We've set up the page so that it will show fairly well on the iPhone or iPad. Thank you. The next video we'll be doing will be on the ancillary screens, and we'll show you those. These down here, we're going to be showing those and walking through them. Okay, thank you.